Yeah, it looks like we are on. Wonderful. Bene. Buongiorno a tutti e benvenuti. Welcome to the Fearless Italian Masterclass, also known as Speak Italian Fearlessly, because that's our objective today. Questo è il nostro obiettivo oggi. Il nostro traguardo, our goal. Now, why are we here? So my guess is, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or say that I'm right by saying hai ragione. You're here because speaking Italian, the speaking skill, is not obvious. It's the most challenging skill for you. Or maybe you're already quite good at it, but you see space for improvement, right? C'è spazio, uno spazio di miglioramento. Now, what's the problem with speaking? While obviously speaking the language we're learning is the holy grail of every single language learner, right? That's what we dream of. I honestly never heard anyone say, oh, I wish I could write or read Italian. It looks so nice on the page. And by the way, it does, but that's not what people say. I mean, what I hear every day or almost is, I wish I could speak Italian and understand Italian, but mostly is I dream of speaking. And that was my dream as well, some 3 decades ago. Now, on one side is the dream of every Italian learner. On the other side, the mechanisms of speaking, which are not obvious at all, they are very rarely discussed and never taught. It's a paradox, really. È un paradosso. So the conventional methods, the traditional way of teaching, just concentrates on the written word, on writing and reading. So you end up writing and reading quite a lot. Maybe some listening is in there, but only if you're lucky. And if you're using any kind of modern AI-based apps, they are very concentrated on mechanical repetition techniques, right? And this is not what we want, because what we need is to wire our brain for Italian. And my guess is that's why you're here. On this masterclass, what I'd like to do is to spend the first part, la prima parte, on the techniques, on the what we call the daily rituals for speaking, which means what you need to do every day, which kind of exercises you need to include in your learning routines or rituals to make sure that your brain is actually wired for Italian. And the second part will discuss the secrets, if you'd like, but the techniques to be able to manage the language in real time. And the very last part, if we have some time, I'll just turn off the recording, which I didn't turn on yet, but here we go, and answer your questions. So welcome again to the Fearless Italian Masterclass. And since today we're speaking about speaking, I'm guessing that the beginners among you would immediately say, well, wait, un attimo. E se sono un principiante, what if I'm a beginner? Do I already need to do this? Do I already need to start speaking? Isn't it a bit premature? Non è un po' prematuro? So what do you think my answer would be? Of course, this is the secret, if you'd like, of successful language learners. Successful language learners never wait until they're fluent to start speaking, because how can you speak if you're not, how can you be fluent if you cannot speak? So even if all you can say is pasta and pizza, if you can write it, you should be able to say it. That's the secret, that's the mechanism, that's how it works. So even if you're a complete beginner, you can take away a lot from this session. So pay attention. Not everything will be immediately useful, but most things will if you apply them correctly. Ok? Allora, velocemente. Rules of engagement, le regole di ingaggio. So how do we do this? There's a lot of us on the call, so please use the chat just for answering the questions. My questions. Do not share anything else, any unrelated links. It's not allowed. And do not chat with each other. That's also not the best use of our time. Do you have to take notes? Se dovete prendere gli appunti. So here's the thing. You will, those of you on the live lesson, I will share at the end of the session the download cheat sheet of the daily rituals. So you don't need to to take notes of the contents. Also, there will be a replay. But what I would like you to do is to write down all the Italian words that you hear. And that's not enough. Since this is a session with no microphones, senza microfoni, what I'm going to ask you to do is to repeat after me every time I pronounce an Italian word or expression, like this. So when I say le regole d'ingaggio, which are of course rules of engagement, you would just say it back to me. Okay? No one can hear you. Your microphone is off, but you should say it. This gets you into the habit of repeating what you hear. The rest of the contents you'll get on the cheat sheet that I will share as a download. It's a special gift for those, wow, many of you who actually took the time to be on the live lesson. Now, a quick question. Who are my Italian U readers? Who is here because they read this book? Let me know in the chat. You can say lettore if you are a gentleman, or lettrice if you are a lady. And if you need to spell it, here's how we spell lettore, which is a reader, of course. And lettrice is a reader, the feminine version of reader. So this is the kind of thing you would repeat after me. Dovete ripetere, right? Especially since you have it on the screen. And of course, if you then write it in the chat, that reinforces. Oh, wow, okay. Michele says, I'm reading the book now. Oh, Michelle, sorry. Lettrice. See, this is useful. This is why Italian is so wonderful. I mispronounced the name, but then I saw lettrice and I realized it was Michelle and not Michele, right? This is that's why gender and number are such an important part of grammar. Ho letto, sono lettrice, says Julie. All right, wow, guys, we have a lot of readers, so thank you so much for joining. I hope you will, all of the things that we learned today connect to the book. And you will tell me at the end if they do. Okay, very quickly, who are the 3D Italian campus students? Go ahead and say allievo. Say it with me, allievo, or allieva, which of course means student, masculine, student, feminine. All right, ciao Francesca, Karen, Jan, Ellen, ciao Ellen. Paolo, ottimo, ottimo, ottimo. And you guys are being very careful with the gender endings, which makes me super proud. Thank you for being here. Okay, now, those of you who are here for the very first time, this is the first live class with myself ever, go ahead and write prima volta. Say it with me, prima volta, which literally means first time, and write it in the chat. All right. Okay, I think we are something like 50-50, 50-50, maybe, 60-40, between students, readers, and first-timers. Wonderful to have you guys. Benvenuti. Welcome. I will do a very quick introduction for those who didn't read the book and are not students. So if this is your first impact with the 3D method, you already probably intuitively know that what we do it differently. So what is the 3D method? It's all about trasformazione invece di informazione. So it's transformation and not information. While the traditional methods are about throwing information at you, we actually help you through the transformation because we have an objective. And our objective, which is in theory yours as well, is to get to that Italian identity through the language, through the culture. The language is a vehicle for that identity. It's a comprehensive event. It's a comprehensive transformation. That's why we use a lot of neurolinguistic tools. So, and obviously we focus on adult neuroplasticity. We share tools for retention of grammar and vocabulary. We concentrate heavily, as you can see from this session, on speaking and, more importantly, thinking in Italian. And actually, a lot of the techniques that I'll share today, they are for speaking, but just because they wire your brain for thinking. But that's a topic for maybe another masterclass. And as I said, identity and culture through a 360-degree language learning experience. And that's in a nutshell, like a small nutshell. I'm Tania. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually the creator of the 3D method and the founder of 7 Week Italian, our online school. But what's really important is that I'm just like you. I fell in love with Italian some 30 years ago. And the moment I felt that this was my passion, I also knew this was going to be my path. And I spent my life, my adult life, basically, pretty much most of it, first learning and then teaching it. So I'm a lifelong language learner. I love the mechanisms, exploring the mechanisms that are involved in language learning, and I love teaching them. And of course, I apply everything I do and everything I know to Italian, which is my biggest passion, even today, even after all these years. And by the way, our entire team at 7 Week Italian, we are all at least trilingual or quadrilingual. So it's a team of polyglots because that's the only way to know what our students are going through. So we see the objective of our learning activities as a Greek temple. Among other things, I'm also a recovering art historian. So for me, this is the perfect architectonical structure. Nothing is more balanced and ideal and perfect than this, the Greek temple. We start with a mindset. We build vocabulary and grammar because these are the foundation. We then grow the language skills to get to the ultimate language skill, thinking, pensare, and that's how you get to structure your and build and craft your identity, identità. So today we are exploring these columns, okay, that hold those identity bits. And these are the language skills: leggere, reading, scrivere, writing, ascoltare, listening, and the Holy Grail, parlare, speaking. And then, of course, we mentioned thinking, pensare, which is the super skill, right? It's the language skill that we get to once we have grown or we start growing all the other skills simultaneously. And today it's all about the speaking skill, parlare. Now, what happens when we try to speak and something gets in the way and we kind of freeze. I call it the rabbit in the headlights. Let me know in the chat if you have ever experienced it. Full disclosure, I did. Absolutely, and more than once. It's something, I think it has to happen to you more than once so you can explore the mechanisms behind it, right? See, oh gosh, yes. Absolutely. D'accordo, says Mark. Mike, yes. Trisha, see, all the time, says Gerard. Now, all the time we're getting into, so we shouldn't go there. Like we need to fix if it's all the time. There are things we're going to fix and we will fix them or start fixing them right away. Now, what is this rabbit in the headlights syndrome? Why does this freezing, why does it happen to us? What's going wrong there? Perché ci blocchiamo? Why do we freeze? So speaking, interestingly, it triggers the response of our limbic system, which is also called the lizard brain, because our psyche somehow perceives this process as a potential danger or a potential unknown situation. And it almost always, if you're not used to it, it almost always triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, what is the fight response? The fight response is when you are just pushing through the situation. You just jump into it, you cover your eyes, and you try to just push through, which means your vocabulary gets like it shrinks to the minimum, the absolute minimum. Your verb conjugations are out of the window. You don't remember your conjugations. You just say whatever comes to mind without any filtering or trying to structure it. That's the fight. The flight is when you just refuse to communicate and you switch to English, and that's it. You step away from the situation. English feels comfortable, so that's where you go. And freeze, the freeze part, that's exactly the rabbit in the headlights. And everyone experiences it. And sometimes it's very irritating because you know the vocabulary, conosci il vocabolario, you know the grammar, conosci la grammatica. And sometimes both vocabulary and grammar that you need for that situation are super basic. And still you block, you're frozen, right? And that's a very interesting mechanism. Now, what happens there? Why is speaking so challenging? Perché è così difficile? Perché richiede un equilibrio delicato. So it requires a delicate balance between three things. And the first thing is la mente, the mind. Now, if you understand these mechanisms, that's why I'm spending time on this. If you understand what happens, it will happen less and less. You'll be able to manage it much better. So what happens in your mind or your brain, technically? This is very schematic, but in your right hemisphere, imagine you have the storage of all the images and concepts and ideas. They're not words, they're images. And in your left hemisphere, it's not one area, you have actually more areas, but let's say it's just one, where you store your words, your grammar structures, your sentence structure, everything that is language. And between us, the more languages you add, the last one is farther and farther away from the part that is responsible for your images and ideas, and it's harder to connect between them. So what has to happen during your speaking, your communication, you need to connect between the two. You need to connect back and forth the word and the image. Then, so this is already not obvious at all. your brain needs to be wired for this connection. It's wired for your native language, obviously, and it's a very quick connection. But for your second, third, or fourth language, that passage is much more difficult. That's why you're searching for words. You are finding it sometimes hard to remember things that you technically know. It's just not as immediate as for your first language. The answer, we need to wire the brain for the Italian connection. Then, something everyone ignores, we have the body. Speaking is a very physical activity. We have many, like our body participates actively in the process of speaking. We have our lungs, we need air to pass through the vocal cords. To make sounds, we need our tongue and teeth and lips and nasal cavity and oral cavity, cavità nasale, cavità orale, la lingua. All of these parts shape the sounds. If we're not used, if our body is not used to this kind of process, if we never speak, we just read, we don't pronounce the words, when it's time to pronounce them, sometimes the block is actually physical, okay? It's not in your brain, it's your body that actually blocks it. And that's a very interesting topic, and maybe we'll come back to it. And then we said la mente, the mind, il corpo, your body, and then we have l'anima, your soul, and that's a poetic description of feelings. Okay, when we are feeling something intensely, that's usually not conducive to clear and good quality communication, right? So if we are afraid, if we are very excited, if we feel some nervousness, if we're nervous or just insecure, entusiasmo, paura, nervosismo, insicurezza. And for those of you who joined just in the last few minutes, I repeat the words so you can repeat and say these words, read them and say them with me. And you'll see why in a minute. Now, how do you find this balance between these three things? Because it's not obvious, right? We need to balance the mind, the brain that should be immediate in the connections. We need to balance the idea that, our body has to be trained for speaking, even as simple as your articulatory apparatus should be able to pronounce certain sounds. Not your native tongue sounds, but Italian sounds. Okay, these are not the same sounds. And then, of course, we have to manage our emotions. If we feel a little bit insecure, our communication, our speaking skills will suffer. So the good news is you can actually solve all of this, or almost, by wiring your brain for speaking. There's a conversation that I keep having with my students. So a student or a potential student would come to me and say, well, I'm very happy with my progress, but I'm unhappy with my speaking. I'm not very good at it. I should be so much better. And then I ask them, well, okay, how much time do you dedicate daily to your speaking? And the answer is, daily? None, but I do meet once a week with my pausa caffè conversation buddies. Does it count? Now, once a week does not count. Non conta. So, with this in mind, let's go into the let's dive into the 5 daily rituals that I would like you to start adopting, to start making part of your daily routine. These are exercises that have the potential, if done right, to wire your brain for speaking. 5 rituali per parlare meglio. 5 rituali per parlare meglio. And of course, I call them rituals because I really don't like the word routines. It somehow has negative connotations for me. Okay, diario italiano. Italian diary or journal. Now, our campus students that are already keeping the diary, or every time I mention a ritual, if you're already doing it, please go ahead and say it in the chat so I can be proud of you. Okay, so what do I mean by Italian diary? Every day you take some time. At the end of the day, you reflect on your day, on what you've done, on your thoughts, on your new ideas, on your plans for the future, maybe anything that happened, maybe something meaningful happened. You go ahead and describe it in Italian. It's like filtering your reality through the lens of Italian. And it's a very powerful exercise. And it's a written exercise, but not for long. Now, the beginners, before you start saying in the chat, but I'm a beginner, I'm not, how can I describe my day and my thoughts and dreams and aspirations? I only know 3 words. So sometimes at the beginning, your Italian diary entry will consist in just 3 words. And if you don't know that specific word that you need, if it's just 3, you'll go ahead and look it up, okay? The dictionary is our best friend. So even as a beginner, this should be a daily habit. And of course, these entries should be very meaningful. You should involve, trigger emotion and possibly imagination, because that's how retention happens. Now, this is a written exercise, but as I said, not for long. Make sure that you read each entry aloud, even if it's just a few words. This should be a habit. If you write it, you should be able to read it. Okay, so do this. Let me see who said that they're doing it. See, Stuart says iniziato. Stuart started. Okay. See, Mark, Diario Italiano. See, yeah, excellent. A lot of you are already doing this. So if you are, wonderful, make sure it's consistent, okay? And this is actually a thinking exercise that then becomes speaking, because you have time to structure your thoughts on paper and then you say them aloud, right? And that's where the magic actually begins. Now, as I said, after you write your daily entry in your diary, Diario Italiano, you also read it aloud. But that's not the only thing you read aloud. You read aloud, leggi ad alta voce, every single thing that you read or write. Yes, literally. If you're reading something, read it aloud. If you've written something, take a second and read it aloud. So what can we read? As I said, tutto, your journal entry. It may be a paragraph from your favorite book that you're reading. The song, the lyrics of your song. Maybe it's a short story or dialogue from your lessons, or anything Italian, any text that you can get your hands on, that you're working on that day, read it aloud. Now, this is the part about the subtitles. This is actually an exercise that I absolutely love. I know that our students who actually do it love it. You put on a movie or a series that you really like, that you know well. You turn off sound, you put on the Italian subtitles, and you just dub the artists. You just dub the film by yourself. Maybe pause and go back, but read aloud the subtitles. This is very effective. Okay, tip. Very important, by the way. If you have doubts, and you will, it's normal. And if you don't, that's suspicious, at the beginning at least. If you have doubts about how things should sound, if what you're saying is actually the way the Italian words and sentences are supposed to sound, go to your text-to-speech software of choice and just copy and paste that text and listen to it, okay? You can choose any text-to-speech app or website that supports Italian. There are a lot of them. Most of them have very generous free plans, and you're not going to process thousands of words a day, right? So make sure you do that, because you need not to guess when you're reading, right? Otherwise, you get into a bad habit of pronouncing something incorrectly. Okay, next one is shadowing or mirroring what you hear. Ascolta e ripeti. And this is actually a listening and repeating exercise, but on steroids, because it's not necessarily the way we were taught when we were kids to listen and repeat. So you can shadow without turning the sound off. Okay, so when I say ascolta e ripeti, you don't pause the video, or I don't pause, but the moment you hear it, you just repeat after me, okay, without this extra space. Or you can mirror when you actually pause, and then you say what you just heard, and you go back to make sure that this was correct. So films, movies, TV shows, dialogues, possibly of things that you know and like. Short story with audio, if you have access to one. Of course, our students have, but in case anything can work. Ideally, you would have the text of that audio, and make sure that when you're shadowing, that's why things that make you shadow, you actually have them in written version as well, and you always know what they mean. Because if you do it automatically without understanding, it doesn't count. Non conta, okay? It's just noise. It's just reproducing sounds. So one, make sure you always understand whatever it is you're shadowing or mirroring. That's why we should choose our favorite movies and series. And secondly, when you do that and you have the text, you can always record yourself and then listen back to yourself and to the original, and start getting into the habit of analyzing your own voice in Italian. And this is, of course, my favorite. Canta canzoni italiane. Sing along with Italian songs. Canta canzoni italiane. So I don't know if you've noticed, but what I made you do up until now with all the Italian bits, that was shadowing or mirroring, right? And this should be a habit of yours. Okay, so what is the song of the week, la canzone della settimana? This is something that we do with our students. We always suggest to have la canzone della settimana, the song that this week you're working on. You translate the lyrics, you read it several times, you learn the song by heart, lyrics and melody, and you sing along while reading the text. And then, of course, from memory. That's why it's too much work for just one day. Ideally, it would be kind of distributed across the week. That's why la canzone della settimana is the song of the week. Now, Fundamental. This is really fundamental. Make sure that you like the song. If you don't like it, don't use it, right? Choose songs that you actually enjoy listening to. You'll spend a week listening to this thing and singing it. And secondly, as with the previous suggestion, you have to understand whatever it is you're pronouncing. Never just make noise. It has to also be filtered through the comprehension mechanism, right? You need to know what it is that you're singing. That's why we translate. And finally, we're not training for an operatic career. Don't worry about your voice, really. It's not about singing excellence. It's about processing Italian with a song that gives us a lot of flexibility, vocabulary-wise, pronunciation-wise, sentence structure-wise. The grammar that comes in with a song is usually retained with great probability. So it's a wonderful tool. Start using it if you're not. Ok, riassumi a memoria. Summarize from memory. Cosa significa? What does it mean? Whatever you do, whatever material you're exposed to, maybe it's a story, maybe it's a book, maybe it's your song of the week. Retell the story, the plot of the movie, whatever it is that maybe happened to you during the day, a story you would like to tell. And after you've tried a couple of times, make a short video or audio recording. Okay, that's the next step. First audio, if you don't like the video bit, but eventually record the video. Just take your phone, deep breath, and go for it. Okay, you don't have to share it with anyone. It can just be for you. So yeah, use the phone recorder app. You can just record the audio on your phone, or actually use your webcam or your phone camera, or even a mirror or a pet. Why not? I've seen that people enjoy speaking Italian to their pets quite a lot. Okay, so if this was new, guys, these are your 5 new daily Italian rituals. Tieni un diario italiano. Keep an Italian diary. Ascolta e ripeti. Shadow and mirror or mirror on audio. Leggi ad alta voce. Read aloud, whatever you're reading or writing. Canta in italiano. Sing along with your, and I insist, favorite Italian songs. Riassumi a memoria. It all comes back to trying to summarize something from memory without reading, whether it's your diary entry, whether it's a series, episode you've just seen, or maybe something that happened to you. Make these part of your learning process. Give yourself a couple of weeks and see how your learning, your Italian, and your speaking is transformed. Now, while these rituals are absolutely magical if you do them right and consistently, and they wire your brain for speaking, there is more that we can do in real time when you're actually speaking. Now, we can actually learn a lot. And who regularly has to handle the most stressful conversations or speaking situation in their second, third, or even fourth language? Who can tell me? Who are these people who have to endure this terrible, difficult things? Okay. Translators, says Joanna. Yes, correct. Fiona, interpreters, this is even closer. So I think even the people who say translators mean real-time translators, which means interpreters. So having been an interpreter myself for many, many years, and I loved this, I've actually weaved a lot of interpreting techniques into the 3D method and into the way we teach and the way we help our students get to their Italian identity and fluency. Now, I don't usually concentrate on these interpreting secrets, but today I'll walk you through the 7 secrets, i 7 segreti di interpreti per parlare sotto pressione. Now, I still use these, all of them, and some of them I've even used on this class. And let's see if you can tell me which ones. Ok, prima, semplifica. Keep it simple. And this sounds very simple, very obvious, right? It's not obvious at all. Non è ovvio per nulla. And the reason is we are educated adults or adults for our English people, and we are used to being articulate and sounding smart. And we need to give it all up if we want to speak Italian successfully and clearly, and to get to that coveted fluency. Because in Italian, we need to take a step back and become like children. I call it the Tarzan mode. So get used to simplifying the concepts, removing the extra layers that education or just the years of experience and wit kind of push us to put in there. Remove everything, leave the bare minimum needed for communication. And break it down. Speak in shortest possible sentences or phrases. So here's how you reduce, here's how you take a step back. I call it respirare, pensare, parlare. Respirare, breathe. Pensare, think. Parlare. And I do hope you're still shadowing me. Okay, so long sentences, break them into short and simple ones. Short sentences should be broken into single phrases, and that's where you pause in between. And phrases, if they're difficult to pronounce, should be broken into words. And when a word is particularly challenging to pronounce, and we all have our Achilles heel words, then we break them into syllables. But that's another masterclass altogether. Right, 2. Rallenta e fai molte pause. Slow down and pause unapologetically. It's okay to slow down. Very often, when we feel a bit of insecurity, it makes us accelerate. It makes us try to speak as quickly as possible, hoping that our interlocutors or our listeners might not notice if we make mistakes. But it doesn't work like that. Especially when you're trying to imitate the quick, very fast speech of Italians, because maybe you've heard your nonna speak like that. But you need to slow down. Be like a young musician. I like making this simile. It's a great metaphor to speaking. A young musician, when he or she plays a piece, maybe it's new, maybe there are simpler parts and more complex parts. The speed or the rhythm, the pace of the piece has to be adapted for the hardest, for the most challenging part, because you cannot run during the simple ones and then slow down on the hard ones, right? So be like a young musician when you're playing your Italian instrument. Slow down and pause. Take the time. Place your pauses strategically in between complete phrases and complete sentences. Okay? So you cannot pause in the middle of a sentence, right? It doesn't quite work. So when you need to pause, and you need to pause to be able to sustain a conversation, right? Those pauses should go in between complete phrases, expressions, short sentences. That's why we need to shorten our sentences as much as possible, because that's where we place our pauses that allow us to think about the next sentence, right? Hopefully this makes sense. 3. Now, this is obvious, but avere la prima frase pronta. Have your opening line ready. Whatever it is you're going to do, whether you're going to the doctor or to the post office, you know what you want. Even if it's just a drink with a friend, you probably know what you're going to say to them when you see them. So whatever it is, just have your prima frase pronta. Maybe rehearse it a couple of times. And that's number 4. Provare. Now, provare can mean to try or to experience, but it also means, Italian is versatile like this, it also means to rehearse. So every situation has a finite number of topics, honestly, and you can predict most of them. And if you're ready for some of them, it also gives you the confidence to say, okay, whatever comes, whatever will happen, I'm ready. So make a short list of topics, research the vocabulary, and rehearse those few situations. Be ready. And there's actually a funny story that just proves that this rehearsing thing it really works. So I was at a course, one of my courses at Cambridge University, and we start the first Friday evening after the dinner, dopo la cena. So, and that's my happy place. You have candles, you have this big ancient hall, everyone is nice to each other, no stress. It's an amazing feeling. I sit down and I'm feeling super relaxed and super ready to take the magic in. And then I realize that across the table from me, there are 2 Italian ladies, and they're arguing. I don't want to say obviously. And one is basically almost crying. Now, I say, okay, what's happening? Why are you crying in my happy place? Perché piangi? Cosa sta succedendo? And she says, well, it turns out there are 2 sisters, Dora and Sonia, and one bought this course for the other as a present, but Sonia hasn't spoken English since her high school years, and that was probably a long time ago, and she is scared in a way that, you know, you're rarely scared if there's no lions involved, but she's really dreading the moment we'll go into class. Now, this is a coaching course, and I ask her, well, what do you think we'll have to talk about? She says, well, and she's a coach, well, if I was teaching this course, I would probably make everyone say what coaching is, describe coaching. And I said, excellent. Write a short paragraph in Italian about coaching. What is coaching for you? She did it. We translated it into English. She rehearsed it. We took the entire dinner to rehearse it, to make sure she could deliver it. We went into class after dinner, she actually got a chance to say it, and she was so happy with herself. And somehow, from tears, she went to this infinite confidence, and she spent the entire 3 days of the course basically never shutting up. And still, I was very proud of her. And this was just a great, great example of how a very small thing really it removed the insecurity. It gave her her confidence back. And even though she wasn't perfect after that, she didn't mind speaking up. That's what rehearsing will do for you. So do it every time you have a chance. 5. Preparare un glossario. Now, a glossary is a magical, magical thing. Interpreters, even the best ones, especially the best ones, use glossaries. What is a glossary? Cos'è un glossario? It's like a little word bank, a list of key terms, phrases, and expressions for specific situations. So, as an interpreter, one day you're talking about cold fusion, the next day you're talking about real estate. And these are very, very different sets of vocabulary, right? And concepts and ideas and depth of thought, let's say, a need in precision. So you would have your cold fusion glossary. I still have mine. You would have your real estate glossary, your espresso coffee glossary, whatever it is that you've ever prepared. You just spend your life collecting glossaries, and you should be doing the same thing. So make sure that every aspect of your Italian interactions is covered with a glossary. If you sometimes go to a bank, you should have a bank glossary, la banca. If it's about interactions with ufficio postale, you would have one for the post office as well. Il ristorante, l'albergo, if you travel a lot. Autonoleggio, if you tend to hire cars in Italy. And the most dreaded one, cena con parenti, a dinner with your relatives. So make sure you always have a glossary ready. Now, this is probably my favorite one. Pensare come un interprete. What does it mean, thinking like an interpreter? Now, sometimes I hear people say, well, sometimes I'm looking for a word, I know it's there, but I can't find it. And I just switch to English because it's just not there. Now, what interpreters do, they cannot afford that long pause that you could normally afford in a normal conversation when you're searching for that word in the depths of your fragmented hard disk. And you cannot take such a long pause as an interpreter. As a teacher, you sometimes can, luckily. So when we don't remember the exact precise word we're looking for, there are 3 things that we do. Generalizzare, descrivere, semplificare. What does it mean? When you blank on a word, you can always go broader instead of going blank. So if it's piccione, pigeon, you don't remember, describe the species. It's a bird, uccello. If you're talking about the sloth, and it's not fundamental to say that he's a sloth, poor thing, bradipo, you would say animal. There was a sloth, c'era un bradipo, okay, c'era un animale. If you don't remember how to say zio, uncle, you would say parente, a relative, right? If it's not fundamental that he is this kind of relative, parente. No, parente is not parent, it's relative, it's a false friend. So that's the first one. Generalizzare, going broader, more general. The second one is descrivere. Describe what it is if you don't have the word for it. So let's say you're looking for campanile, the word escapes you, you say, okay, you remember tower and you remember church, chiesa, la torre vicino alla chiesa, the tower next to the church. Descriptive, right? It's a descriptive way to get there. And it works. No one cares. Sometimes people don't even notice. If you don't remember how to say tradurre, translate, you can say it differently. Say, dirlo in inglese. Okay, there's always, unless probably you're a scientist or unless you're doing something very, very, very specific, there's always a way to describe the word that eludes you at the moment. And finally, semplificare. You can simplify the idea. So if you're looking for a word that is maybe a bit too smart, it's complex or slightly rare, even if you've learned it, maybe you don't remember, make it simpler. Ask yourself, what's the simplest way to say this? Vogliamo pagare in 3 rate. Rate are installments. You don't remember installments, it's a bit specific, it's a bit technical. Say payments. Vogliamo fare 3 pagamenti. Okay? Communication, the quality of communication comes before the quality of, or the level of your Italian, right? Simplify. Even if people notice, they will appreciate the effort. La connessione internet è instabile. It's unstable. You don't remember unstable, say it's weak, debole. Okay, we don't always have our dictionary with us. We don't always have the possibility to look things up. So, generalizzare, descrivere, semplificare. Even if today you're a complete beginner and this is the first time you're hearing about these strategies, you might not use them today, or maybe you will, but tomorrow these will be invaluable additions to your speaking. Okay, another conversation I've had several times with students. Student, I went to Italy and I had such a hard time speaking because sometimes Italians would just start talking fast. Of course, they hear that someone is trying to speak in Italian with them. They don't realize that their speech might be a little bit faster than the person is used to. So they just respond normally and the student switches to English. And then I ask, so how many times did you ask them to repeat? 9 times out of 10, the answer is, I was too embarrassed to ask them to repeat, or something along these lines. But that's not okay. Sempre, sempre chiedi di ripetere o spiegare. Ask people to repeat. Because here's the thing, communication is always a shared responsibility. It's not just on you. Even if you are slightly disadvantaged in that situation, you are maybe have a bit of more of a challenge to communicate. But it's not all on you. There are 2 people, sometimes more, in that situation. So if you don't understand something, the responsibility is not just yours, it's also theirs. Okay? The problem becomes part of the conversation, and they are the ones who have to make things easier for you. You have to make the effort, but they should participate. And they will, okay? You should never be embarrassed to ask people to repeat as many times as you need before you switch to English. How do we do that? Può ripetere, per favore, when it's slightly formal. You don't really know the person, you need to keep some distance. Può ripetere, per favore? Shadow me. If it's a simple, informal, friendly context, you can say, scusa, puoi ripetere? That's more immediate. Or if you want someone to slow down, you could say, lo ripeti più lentamente, per favore? Lo ripeti più lentamente, per favore? Or it's not about the speed, it's about the choice of words. Puoi dirlo in parole più semplici? Could you say it with simpler words? That's how they realize that they have chosen words that are a bit too advanced for you, but they will be happy to repeat. Okay, never run away from these kind of situations. Okay, and the bonus one, number 8, and probably the most important one. So what happened to Sonia, my friend who took the Cambridge coaching course? She, first of all, she allowed herself to do something scary. She prepared and rehearsed, but then ultimately she realized that she didn't have to be perfect at all. And she wasn't at all, but she was part of the conversation, very much so. So embrace imperfection, your own imperfection. I always say, and I think it's in the book as well somewhere, sacrifice perfection on the altar of efficient communication, because that's what I feel this is, at least for me. Sacrifica la perfezione sull'altare della comunicazione efficace. Because communication comes first. So please make mistakes fearlessly. Don't overcorrect. So if it was clear, whatever you said, even if it wasn't, do not go back and self-correct. Okay? It doesn't help anyone. Do not try to be perfect. It's not helpful. So move the conversation forward with the imperfection and possibly with a smile. So to sum up, our 7 secrets, I 7 segreti per parlare sotto pressione. Semplificare, keep it simple as you possibly humanly can. Rallentare e fare molte pause. Slow down and pause fearlessly. Pause as much as you can. If you're not rushing through your words and sentences, if you're speaking slowly, the pauses would seem natural. If you're rushing through the easy parts and then getting stuck on the more complex parts, it won't feel so natural. It's not the end of the world, but if you want the communication to flow, pause and simplify, and then pause again. Avere la prima frase pronta. Arrive ready with your first sentence, wherever it is that you're going. Provare. Rehearse. Always rehearse. The situation is very predictable, almost always. And if it's not, just because you have something ready, that already takes a lot of stress away. Preparare un glossario. Prepare a glossary, have a glossary for everything that you use or every situation that you keep finding yourself in. Pensa come un interprete. Okay? Find a way around the word you don't remember. Chiedi di ripetere o di spiegare. Ask people to repeat. Do not be afraid to ask for clarifications. And finally, the one that takes most courage, accetta l'imperfezione. Accept your own imperfections. Fluency is not perfection. I say it's courage in motion. Parlare fluentemente non ha niente a che fare con la perfezione, ma tutto a che fare con il coraggio. So we started this journey with why speaking is hard. We talked about the different reasons why, and the journey brought us back to the part of the emotions. And courage is an emotion, but unlike all the other emotions, it actually helps you sustain the conversation and move forward the communication. Okay, it's not as obvious as it sounds. Okay, going back to our Temple of Italian. And we even have some time left. Okay, allora. I promised two things, actually. I promised the daily rituals cheat sheet that I will share it in a bit in the chat. And I actually, some of you might have already heard me talk about it. I also promised another session. George, thanks for coming. Now, if I were following to the letter the rules of free webinars, this is where I would say, okay, if you like our approach, if you like the way we do things, if you like this little bit of the 3D method that you've just heard, you're welcome to join our campus program, the Italian campus. Come in, we'll welcome you, and here's the link. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, those of you who actually want to learn about how we can help them, those of you who actually want to discover how we translated this temple of Italian, il Tempio dell'Italiano, into a groundbreaking, I have to say, language program, you're very welcome to join us on the open house tomorrow. For those of you who are not inside Italian campus yet, tomorrow, same time, same place, you can register and join us and see how Italian campus actually allows you to build that temple. Now, I'm going to share in the chat the link to register for tomorrow, and then I'll also share the giveaway from today. Now, the reason we do that is, first of all, there are a lot of people on this masterclass who are already inside Italian campus, and that wouldn't be a good use of their time. And secondly, it takes time, especially if I want, and I do want to answer your questions. Okay, so this is what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm going to show you exactly what campus is. You can go ahead and click on the link that I just shared in the chat. Let me know if you see it. And yeah. Okay, if you cannot be there tomorrow, you can register. This is how you make sure that we send you the replay. The replay will be available for just, I think, a couple of days. So make sure that you watch it. You can click on it, Penny. When you click on it, it opens a screen where it says register for the open house. And this is how you save your seat. Okay, this is what you're supposed to see when you click on it. You click on Save My Seat, register, and you will get an invite. Right, so I promised the giveaway. Let me just share that in the chat. Now, I'll also give you a second to register if you want to register, and we'll send it by email as well. Now, the download, which is only available for those of you who are actually on the call right now live, it's already in the chat. Just please note that when you click the link, it's on some devices, it will just automatically download and it will say nothing to you. It will not alert you in any way that it's been downloaded. Now, back to our speaking fearlessly. We're not quite done. I know that some people had to go around the hour, so okay. Right. So I won't say more about Italian Campus now, because tomorrow our open house will be dedicated to this program, and there will also be some summer bonuses. So if you were thinking about campus for a while and you are not going to spend the entire summer traveling, you do have some time to invest in your Italian. This might just be the right time to jump in, but more on it tomorrow. This is for everyone. Qual è la cosa più importante che ti ricorderai? What's the biggest takeaway that you're taking away, pardon the tautology, from this masterclass? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. Kathy says, steps I can take, daily routines, the importance of speaking daily using the rituals you described. Yes, Jerry. Oh, you're welcome. I 5 rituali. Okay, rehearse. Don't fear trying. Thank you so much for this. Yes. Daily speaking, daily commitment. Singing is good. Yes. All right. Wonderful commitment. Yes. Cantare. Okay, a lot of takeaways about singing. I'm loving this. What I would like you to take away is this. Every day, make sure you do at least one thing, possibly all of them, but at least one, to rewire your brain for speaking. I don't know if you've noticed, but what we did today, these 5 rituals, they're actually leveraging all the other language skills to build your speaking skill. And that's why they work, okay? Because it's a 360-degree approach, like everything we do in the 3D method, right? It comes from different angles at the problem, at the speaking problem. The 7 secrets of interpreters, even if some of them feel premature, remember them. They will become pretty handy the moment you start communicating, even if it's just a few words you're saying. And most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, be unapologetically imperfect and own your mistakes, because our mistakes do not define us. Our courage does. Okay. This was my reminder to share the live bonus giveaway, which I did. I'm going to drop the invite for tomorrow one more time. And then I'm going to stop the stream and the recording and say thank you to everyone who watched the recording and the stream, and share the final bonus reserved for live participants who want to stay, to hang back a little bit and maybe have questions. So this is what I'm going to do.